If you're brand new to earning and redeeming Qantas points, then good news. Today is all about redemption values, and by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly how much it's going to cost you to acquire points. You're going to know exactly which routes are going to give you the best bang for buck for your points, so you can ensure that you are earning and redeeming them at max value. This video is going to make it crystal clear, so you're going to know exactly what routes you should be redeeming your points on to make it worth your while. And before I get into it, if these videos are helpful to you, I'd really appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up and also left a comment if you have any ideas on what I should talk about in the future. So with that in mind, let's get straight into the first topic. First thing I want to discuss is going to be how we figure out how much it costs us to actually acquire the points that you're going to earn. So to do this, a typical example will be sometimes if you have an Amex card, they will have an additional surcharge for you to use that Amex card when you're paying for things. For example, the surcharge might be 2%. So for this example, let's assume that we are going to be doing a $1,000 spend and the surcharge is 2%. This means it's going to cost us $20 in order to use that surcharge, but when we pay that surcharge, we're going to earn points on that transaction when we use our Amex card. So for this example, to figure out how much it's going to cost us to acquire those points, the math is as follows. The cost to acquire those points, so for example, the $20 surcharge, divided by the amount of points that we're going to earn. So for this example, if our credit card's going to earn us 1 point for every dollar that we spend, we're going to be earning 1,000 points. We would then do the $20 divided by the 1,000 points that we're earning. When you plug that into a calculator, the mass is going to show that it's 0.02. This means it's going to cost us 2 cents to earn 1 point. We now know how much it's costing us to acquire points. For every 2 cents that we spend, we're going to accumulate 1 point. This is very important to know because it's going to give us an understanding of if we should be using our points on certain redemptions or not. The next thing I want to discuss is calculating redemption values. So what I mean by that is every time we book a flight, when we use our points, there's a certain amount of redemption value associated with that point. And I'm going to run through a number of examples today so you can see exactly what type of redemptions give you the best bang for your buck. And you're going to know exactly what sort of flights you should be looking for in the future. So to figure out how much each flight is going to give us in redemption value, the math behind that is the cash price of a flight. So for example, if we were going to Sydney and we were in Brisbane, the cash price to book a flight from Brisbane to Sydney is usually around $150. This will be on Qantas aircraft. If you go on Google Flights or the Qantas website, any given day, they're roughly around $150. Now, when we use points, we're going to pay a certain amount of points plus some flight taxes as well. For example, on this route from Brisbane to Sydney, the flight taxes for an economy ticket are about $50 that you're going to pay in addition to the points you spend. So the first half of the mass is going to be the cash price minus the flight taxes. So $150 would be the cash price minus the flight taxes that we're going to pay with points. So $50 is going to give us a net value of $100 in cash. We then need to divide the net value divided by the amount of points it's going to cost us in order to book that flight with points. So for this example, if we were using Qantas points to go from Brisbane to Sydney, it's going to cost us 9,200 Qantas points. This means we would do the $150 minus the $50 in flight taxes divided by 9,200. Calculator will then show us 0.01. This means for every 1 point that we redeem, we're getting 1 cent worth of value. If we go back to the example before, the cost to acquire points, we figured out that it was costing us about 2 cents to earn 1 point. On this redemption, if we are going to use our points on a Brisbane to Sydney flight using points, we can see that we're getting 1 cent worth of value. This means we are basically just burning money. You really do not want to be using your points on these redemptions. The exception to this rule is if you have an abundance of points and you're constantly earning points, you've got a surplus and you just need to use them up. But from a pure mass perspective, it does not make any sense to be using your points on these sort of redemptions. Now that is just one example. I am going to go through a number of examples now to help you realize what sort of redemptions are going to give you the best bang for your buck. The mass gets a little bit better if we take that same route and get in business class. For example, on a Qantas flight from Brisbane to Sydney in business class, typically that would cost you $1,000 to book with cash. If we use our points for this, if we use our Qantas points, jump on the Qantas website, they're going to charge us 19,300 Qantas points when we book a classic reward fare. Flight taxes that we'll pay in addition to this are going to be $81. So if we use that same formula before, we take $1,000, take away our $81 in flight taxes, divide it by 19,300 points. This is going to give us redemption value of 5 cents of value for every point that we redeem. This is 5 times the value compared to redeeming that in economy, and it's the exact same flight. In my personal opinion, you don't need a business class seat for a 1-hour flight. I personally avoid using my points on these sort of redemptions. Instead, I save them for international trips. So let's discuss a few of those examples now. Bali is one of Australia's favorite destinations to go to. It's such an easy holiday and it's an amazing place to go and visit. Jetstar have flights from pretty much every single major city in Australia to Bali. The example that I want to discuss is going to be an economy flight on Jetstar from Brisbane to Bali. Typically with cash, you can book this ticket for about $450. If we're going to use our Qantas points, we can book that same ticket for about 20,700 points and $130 in flight taxes. This means when we do the maths, $450 minus $130 flight taxes divided by the 20,700 Qantas points required, this is going to give us a redemption value of 1.5 cents for every point that we redeem. Again, referring back to the first example, if we're earning points at 2 cents per point, we are still burning money. We don't ever want to use our points on these low-cost carrier airlines like Jetstar, particularly because they have sales on flights to Bali and flights to Thailand all the time. The exception to that rule is if you have a system in place where you're just earning an abundance of points and it really doesn't bother your points balance if you go ahead and churn points on that sort of redemption. If you want to learn from me how I earn over 1 million points every single year, check out the link in the video description. In there you'll find my Patreon group. Get a ton of perks plus unlimited support from me. Moving on to the next destination, Tokyo, Japan is a destination that so many Aussies are going to at the moment. For this example, I'm going to talk about a Qantas flight from Melbourne to Tokyo, assuming that we can get a business class classic reward seat. If we were to pay cash to go from Melbourne to Tokyo in business class, it's usually going to set us back about $4,500. Using Qantas points, we can book that same seat on a classic reward fare for 98,400 Qantas points and $315 in flight taxes. When we do the maths, $4,300 in cash price minus $350 for the flight taxes divided by 98,400 Qantas points, this is going to spit out a redemption value of 4 cents for every point that we redeem. You can see here by booking long-haul international business class flights in premium cabins like business class, we're starting to get better bang for our buck. The maths gets even better when we start looking at first class redemptions. So for this example, let's talk about flying first class to the USA on Qantas, Sydney to Los Angeles. It's going to set us back over $17,500 when we're paying cash. If we have Qantas points and we're lucky enough to find a Qantas classic reward fare, we can book that same seat for 195,400 Qantas points and $300 in taxes. So when we do the maths, $17,500 minus $300 in flight taxes divided by 195,400 Qantas points, this is going to give us redemption value of 8.8 cents for every point that we redeem. To summarize, look for long-haul international business or first class on premium airlines such as Qantas, Emirates, British Air, Cathay Pacific. When you use your points on these sort of redemptions, you're going to greatly increase your redemption value compared to when we're doing short-haul domestic economy flights or even short-haul international domestic flights on budget carriers such as Jetstar. Now this is all great. We now know exactly what we should be using our points on and also how much it's costing us to acquire those points. But the big problem is finding these classic reward rates is very, very difficult. Often the biggest frustration I get from people is that they've spent so much time and so much effort to accumulate these points, but they can't actually use them on flights they want. If you have this problem, check out the link in my bio. I have a Patreon group. Every single day I scan the entire Qantas and Velocity website, and in there I give my members the very best reward seats that they can book on the Qantas website today. This means you can finally start to use your points and get those rare business and first class seats you're chasing. In addition to that, you'll also get one-on-one help from me personally. So if you have any questions specific to your trip, you can just shoot me a message in there and I can help you out. I hope this video has been helpful to you. Remember, like, comment, and subscribe. Other than that, I will see you in the next video.